Hi, my name is Aditya. I'm going to talk about the final project presentation for ADTA course, and then here we are going to talk about determining accommodation prices on Airbnb as part of my final project. So the first topic that we will be going through in this is about the introduction. Why are we doing this project? And then we are going to talk about the literature review, and then the regression model that has been chosen, and how the model fits, and then how did we kind of help with this model what did we achieve from this model. So first, so we're going to talk about Airbnb. Airbnb is an organization that's not been that was invented in 2008, and that's about like 11 years old. And then it started with about 140k guests in 2010 to about like 164 million in 2018 from a recent statistic that was pulled. So even though it's like 10 years old, there has been a lot of people that has been using this Airbnb, and there has been pros and cons because it's like against the normal standard way of booking reservations through hotels rather than getting a home feel when we are doing with our Airbnb accommodation. So even though the company has been in existence for less than 10 years, numerous research studies have been done on company from various disciplines. They have focused on non-economic impacts of Airbnb on the society. They also have quantitative and predictors and projections about profitability of the company since its inception. So there's been a lot of discussions about how and why Airbnb is being successful, and kind of going in similar studies, we wanted to understand what are the factors that are important for making an accommodation on Airbnb, and how does they impact. So from my understanding, the top rated factors that influence revenues for Airbnb are like perceived level of trust, price of the accommodation, features of the accommodation. So as for the trust, a major challenge of the host is to create a positive review and welcoming review rating to attract customers. So reviews are very important. Star ratings are important. That indicate like how how the previous customer might have liked the accommodation. So next important factor in consideration, the overall price. So people tend to like look for lesser expensive options. So perceived prices of the apartments appeared higher would scare potential customers away. A more abstracted factor on how perceived accommodation was investigated by researchers as being a strong predictor. Perceived value was measured by star ratings, which seem to be associated with likelihood of renting an Airbnb accommodation as well. So also there are other factors that are being like considered, like is it, what kind of host are they, like is it pretty popular? Maybe if it is pretty popular, they'll call it as a super host. So going forward with more on the literature review, we're going to talk about 4 different aspects which are kind of primary for anybody who wants to choose an accommodation, like neighborhood and household feel. The reason why Airbnb is more popular, because they get a service charge from the host as well as customer, and because it just displays a host details, with their pictures and accommodation information. People try to get their home feel, and then they wanted, sometimes when we are trying to rent, they wanted to get a local feeling rather than staying in a hotel. If we stay in a home with a neighborhood, like where they wanted to visit, or with getting to know the people around, it's also important when we are going and visiting a place. So part of that, if we have a good neighborhood and a good household feel, I think people would tend to like it better rather than staying in a traditional hotel room. Also, another important thing is reviews and ratings. So people tend to stay away if there are not many reviews, because it's a completely strange place for anybody, because there is no licensing as such, just that somebody wants to host on their home as a rental property. So Airbnb user review is one of the major factors that impacted people tend to hire an Airbnb accommodation. So they'll get a first-hand explanation of the important aspects such as general household amenities, availability of the host, space available, and so on. So going forward, like, next one is the role of perceived trust. One way to assess the level of truthfulness of the purchased services and amenities offered by a home is through thorough reading comments and giving reviews given by other previous users. So most people would likely relate with the experiences explained by previous user, hence would not begin to form opinions on whether to hire or not the services. The more reviews, the more advantage is creating a confidence in usage of the Airbnb facility. So another thing is convenience. So for example, if you are visiting a place, people would like to stay closer to where they wanted to be at, and if it is a popular place, it might be difficult to find a hotel, and like if there is a home around, it would be much easier for people to pick up. So that is another important factor as well, from my understanding. With the literature of most powerful factors that may affect perceived prices from the perspective customer, intent of the study is to model the factors that are in line with this literature believed to affect the perceived prices of Airbnb. Key variables that we included in the study were price, reviews and ratings, number of people that accommodation facility can take in at the time, location of the accommodation facility, distance from the nearest city center, availability and neighborhood of the accommodation facility. So the design was a cross-sectional model building criteria using linear regression model. The expectations in this model perceive prices as a function of the variable, measuring neighborhood and house feel, reviews and ratings, perceived trust and convenience of movement is that are positively associated with the perceived A&B prices. So going to the next slide, we wanted to create a problem statement. Airbnb provides information to the public about condition of the host home or room, and then potential customers judge based on the information provided whether perceived value matches the price of the accommodation facilities. If the prices are perceived to not match the perceived value of the accommodation, customers are likely to search elsewhere where they can find value for money. From the perspective of host, they want to know the factors that determine an improvement of perceived value, in which they turn to predict the ratings. So model used in this present paper presumes that there is competition with little government influence, and only perceived value by the customers would cause a change in the ratings, which directly affect the prices of the Airbnb. By creating a mathematical model where ratings is the outcome variable, the present study would be able to establish which factors are important and how they affect ratings, so that the host could work on improving those factors. So creating rating as a dependent variable, we'll can consider all the variables, and we'll go through a sample data collection, analysis, data cleaning. We'll find out what variables in the model are important. So we got the data downloaded from Kaggle because from Airbnb we were having difficulties to get the data set. So we got the data set for about 256 sample size observations for cities in Netherlands, and we use that as a reference and create model that would fit in our US cities. So analysis was carried out in SPSS. Since data was stored in Excel spreadsheet, initial cleaning, preliminary data cleaning was carried out to identify missing values. Data was partially cleaned in Excel and then was exported to SPSS, where further cleaning was carried out. So analysis for key regression assumptions of the main response variable was carried out, as well as checking correlation among predictor variables. All predictor variables were included in analysis and filtered out using stepwise procedure to get variables that improve the model based on the adjusted R-square value. So the final model was deployed for predicting the values within the range of predictor variables. Interpretation was done for statistically significant variables. Data cleaning. So the raw data contained about 90 variables, out of which a handful variables were required. While raw data has as many as 3000 observations, not all 3000 observations had all the variables filled out. So data cleaning was done basis of variables with least missing values, after which was selected variables was subjected to correlation analysis. 15 variables were used in measuring the correlation with main dependent variables, where 7 out of the variables showed correlation less than 0.1 and were also not statistically significant. So the 7 variables were taken out for the analysis. The size of the remaining variables was 320 observations. However, not all variables had 320 observations. So we went down to 256 records that were used in the dataset. Next, the variables in the model. So there were 8 predictor variables included in the study, out of which we went through the stepwise regression. Let me go through the results. So we kind of looked at the mean and standard deviation for the average review rating scores, and we could see, like, superhost has statistically significant higher review ratings compared to non-superhost, which definitely means, like, people who tend to accommodate more times, they are considered superhost, and obviously they have higher statistically significant ratings. So the regression model that we chose was statistically significant. We wanted to do at a 5% confidence level, 95% confidence level, and using the 4 and 249 variables, we got F value of 51.48 and P000. So the predictors in the equation accounted for 44% of the total variation in the values of the rate. The final adjusted R-square was 0.444. So since stepwise approach was used, all the variables in regression model was statistically significant, and we came up with a regression model where the constant was 32.841 plus 2.219 clean, perceived cleanliness 3.194 as the communication, perceived communications 1.091 location, perceived location, and 0.043 as perceived host. So these were the variables that were important in creating a regression interpretation. So here are the details from what we have seen in the previous slide, where B is the value that was like creating the regression equation. So we wanted to kind of test this hypothesis, so we went ahead and generated an output which was used to test this model, and took a screenshot to show, like, how the reviews and how the adjusted value was kind of closer. And in most occurrences, if you see the record 196 and 94.04, the regression model was able to kind of predict the prices correctly. So I think, like, we were able to confirm that the model is good. Also, there were other factors like wheelchair accommodation or the other accommodation details that were provided as the factors, which were not that like helpful for getting a better rating. So from our understanding or from our analysis, we were able to come up with a regression model which would predict the ratings based on cleanliness, communication, host, and location.